AI provides us with an endless array of possible software-generated poetry and visual art, essays, answers to questions, solutions to problems. As a replacement for thinking, the use of AI becomes lethally addictive. It's what Kierkegaard called the despair of possibility. To be in despair of possibility is to be immersed in endless change, where everything is always becoming and nothing is allowed to simply be. Addicted to the next thing. Despair of necessity, the opposite, is to be in a situation where nothing can ever change. So pure form that never allows any change, or pure flux that never allows any rest. These are the two twin monsters, alienated necessity and possibility. But of course, AI isn't really neutral. It's not just possibilities for their own sake. Those who program AI will encode their beliefs into it, and we know that from ChatGPT. It has an ideological bias to it, how it answers questions and so on. But even if AI were utterly neutral, possessing no particular inclination, just processing human and technology-generated data, it wouldn't be benign. It would be just another version of the idea that human deliberation should submit to some neutral mechanism, some impersonal force. These forces that just lead us to progress, allocate resources without human moral deliberation at the center of them. In fact, we could say modernity is largely about ideologies that believe in automating, mechanizing social relations, relying on non-conscious processes rather than the hard work of, again, moral calculus, moral deliberation. The real danger AI poses to a weak generation lacking discipline and a grounding in traditional aesthetics and moral criteria is the seductive draw of open-ended possibility. Artificial intelligence reminds us of folk stories in which a craftsman receives help from gnomes to complete a commission, or King Solomon, whose genies built and sculpted his palace and decorations. And in these stories, there is an appropriate way to use such magical arts, but they are always volatile, they're always dangerous as well. As Nietzsche said of the abyss, which gazes back into us as we gaze into it, we might say that AI prompts us as we prompt it. It affects our thinking.
It affects the user, the person who engages with artificial intelligence. Plato told us that writing could affect how we think, because we wouldn't commit things to memory anymore. There's so many elements of culture that are downstream from technology that we actually have to address our use of technology first.
Outsourcing of understanding to external technologies leaves us ignorant. It leaves us stranded in mystification. Heidegger warned against this in The Question Concerning Technology, where he expresses suspicion at the idea of using technologies we do not understand, machines whose gears we don't see. It's for this reason that William Blake understood mystery and tyranny as allies. Tyranny justifies itself on the basis of mystery, and accepting mystery leads us to tyranny. I'll talk more about that later. External technology can become the center of our self-image so that our minds and bodies feel like mere appendages, obsessively responding to its prompts and compulsively pursuing its possibilities. From this fixation on what technology can offer, this addiction to its constant novelty, comes a despair of possibility so extreme that it eventually flips over into a despair of necessity. AI generates a black box of inner workings consisting of ever-changing learning pathways which programmers cannot always track, and this black box usurps the proper center of the human heart. Like a virtual counterfeit Kaaba around which postmodern devotees of technology may congregate. Technology, our creation, pretends to have primacy over us, pretends to have parenthood over the humanity that created it, pretends to be the legitimate center for problem solving and even moral calculus, a position it usurps from our creativity, from the dynamic human spirit. Human labor is replaced by technology, human memory as well, but more than this, human imagination gets outsourced. It's not deliberate anymore. Whereas once AI inspired us with infinite possibility, it begins to have the opposite effect, making everything look the same. Specific AI tools with their specific programs proliferate, and suddenly everything starts to look and feel the same. And the less creative and capable we are ourselves, our creativity atrophying because we over-rely on AI, the less we can do without it. We can't draw or afford an artist, so we make AI images just like everyone else. We haven't learned to speak or write our thoughts down in an orderly way, to edit, so we use AI video and voice generators just like everyone else. What used to represent infinite possibility starts to represent total conformity, total homogeneity. From the despair of possibility, we swing to the despair of necessity. Nothing has to be any particular way, to things have to only be this way. From what the poet William Blake called mystery, his version of the Whore of Babylon, mystery as possibility, the unknown, the constant allure of that which is not known, to his tyranny, the tyrannical parody of true patriarchy. So from Babylon's cup to the Tower of Babel, from the feminine perversion to the masculine perversion, these form a dialectic of conflict rather than complementarity. So AI really reproposes this dialectic whereby if you pursue something for its own sake, it ends up flipping over into its opposite. Pursue freedom for its own sake, it flips over into tyranny because you destroy previous structures, community to be free of it, but then you render yourself more vulnerable to top-down control. If you pursue innovation for its own sake, if you pursue open-ended novelty through AI, you become less creative because you become less skilled and everything kind of homogenizes. So there is a tendency for things to flip over into their opposite. Like Jesus, we are tempted in the wilderness by a devil offering us all the kingdoms of the earth, all the possibilities we can imagine. But just as Satan claims sovereignty over the earth, technology and automation is claiming primacy over human imagination. The end point of accepting this gift is slavery, where the tool claims primacy over the craftsman. It's the devouring Saturn, a false father whose belly is like an inverse womb, consuming rather than birthing his children. But the true vice-regent and creative actor on earth is the righteous person, the artist, the inventor who places himself at the service of moral, spiritually upright principles and submits to the transcendent source, to God, to the contemplation of higher truths and archetypes, and gives them definite form in the world. That's the traditional understanding. When the creative will of human beings is aligned with itself, disciplined and willing to forgo other possibilities in the pursuit of its true purpose, then necessity and possibility, fixity and flux, formalism and freedom, the masculine and the feminine, are no longer at odds with each other, but complement one another. Possibilities are harnessed to necessity. The range of possible creative works is limited by what is specifically necessary for our creative vision, for your particular mission in life. The feminine is that which multiplies, that which becomes, and it has to be given shape to, limited by the masculine, which is limit. In Neoplatonic terms, these are the two fundamental forces of all things, the way all things come about. Apeiron, the boundless, the possible, the expansive, and peras, the limit, that which delimitates, that which defines things, the female and the male. What this means in concrete terms is that we should approach technology, the internet in general, but AI in particular, because it's such an extreme case, with a purpose in mind, not allow it to derail us. We should use instruments as instruments and regain a sense for appropriate technology rather than using high-tech means for low-tech ends as well. All of this in order to keep the locus of creative work, the sense of intention and guiding vision where it belongs in the human subject itself, cultivating skill, understanding, virtue, rather than continuing to diminish and atrophy, enfeeble our attention spans, our memories, our cognitive abilities in favor of machines. If we cultivate discipline, the ability to limit ourselves and our works to what's really necessary and not get lost in what's merely possible, then AI can allow us to hone in on those creative visions more quickly and with fewer intermediaries than would otherwise be required, which is a good thing. Indeed, anyone who's tried to get AI to deliver very specific results and conform to very specific constraints that you have in your mind for a creative project knows that it's a tool like any other. The problem is where you give up your creative vision for the sake of what it shows you, and you're not really getting it to conform to what you had decided prior to coming into contact with the technology. But that's the nature of doing without intermediaries. If you win the lottery and don't need to go to work anymore, the question of whether that's edifying or not depends on you, on the quality of your vision for life. Your discipline, how solid you are in holding your appetites back and directing yourself according to whatever you want to accomplish in life. If you don't have that strong sense of discipline, then winning the lottery may end up being a curse. That's the case with technology as well. In terms of its societal impact and how we can harness AI, not just as individuals, but as groups, as collectives, as tribes. Technology can work to make everything look the same, but this can also be offset by decentralizing efforts, having technology reworked by local communities and adapted to their own particular needs, their own cultural and national identities. If a student uses AI, it would never give him references to Miley Cyrus or Obama, but only local history, local heroes, scientific information, etc. If that's what the school that's providing him with the AI wants, if that's what the community has decided to limit it to. So that would be my pro-identity recommendation for communities to take AI, especially public source, public domain, open source AI, strip it down and just put in what you want it to know and use it for specific things.
If AI is to be something other than the Soma of Brave New World, for example, if our capacity to be endlessly distracted by it, or perhaps to have our creative projects hijacked by the panoply of possibilities that it offers us and that kind of compulsive addiction that it sort of suggests to some of us, which the internet does as well, then we need to have some idea of what a healthy rapport with new technologies looks like. Perhaps that looks like creating local neighborhood internet portals.
So I wanted to finish this video with a few key recommendations. If I were a consultant or political analyst working for a political party, this is what I would recommend as far as technology and artificial intelligence. Some folks commented on my last video about hyperstimulation that there wasn't enough constructive proposals. So this is my attempt to address that. The first point would be to mandate low-tech spaces based on the principle that the human person comes first, and aspects of the human whole, the human personality, can atrophy, can become weak when we don't use them, like memory or mental agility when we use the calculator even for simple maths, say. In the case of maths, for example, we should resort first to the head, then to the abacus, then to the calculator, then to the computer, depending on how difficult it is. But as subjects, we have to be agile, we have to be engaged. We can't outsource even simple tasks. The second point would be that education in particular should foster discipline in young people, and cognitive structures, including memory, should be emphasized in school. In particular, education, the school system, should equip the young to preserve themselves, to protect themselves from the addictive draw of compulsively chasing the infinite branching possibilities AI suggests to them, Kierkegaard's despair of possibility. So there should be a real emphasis on reducing the speed and diversity of stimulus which young people are exposed to, and cultivating in them the taste for long-form reading, listening to classical pieces. These are kind of endurance sports by our standards today, because nobody has the time or the attention to spend a long period of mental focus on these works. But if you cultivate a taste for that when you're young, it's easier to recover later in life. The third point would be that technology should be localization/decentralization friendly by design, in order to preserve and potentiate local culture and the beauty of humanity's cultural differences, local ethnic differences, on the one hand, and on the other hand, local community engagement, group deliberation, sociability, which I think is necessary for proper human flourishing, and the sense of fulfillment. You need to be engaged in community decision-making and exchanging ideas with people. Technology shouldn't be getting in the way of that. So being localization friendly or identity friendly means you take technologies like AI and you can strip them down, and then you make them available to communities for them to fill in with their own local color. And at the national level, you produce AI engines and so on that are specific to your culture, specific to your history, specific to the narrative that strengthens your identity, etc. You don't just leave this up to global companies. You actually take the reins for community, for identity, for nation. The fourth point is that technology should abstain from anthropomorphic presentation in order not to interfere with our ability to relate to each other. And in the case of younger people, to be properly socialized. We're taking a page out of Frank Herbert's Dune here. But if AI needs to imitate human beings for the sake of ease of interaction, or in order to serve a user, for example, to stimulate interactions for someone learning to interact on account of some disorder that they may have, that they're trying to work around, say certain kinds of autism, then it should be limited to that particular educational use. It shouldn't be allowed to replace human interaction in general. We should always be aware we're interacting with technology so that we get our social interaction from actual people, from an actual other conscious agent. Another political recommendation here would be to try to cut down on consultancy, make bureaucracy easy so that folks don't need as many consultants to get things done, so that when AI replaces consultants, which in a lot of cases it probably will, because it can adapt what you're doing to specific technical requirements. That's the kind of thing it's good at. When that handoff happens, it'll be less of an impact to the economy because less of your economy consists of consultants. That's just a practical thing that should probably be thought about. I should add that I've used clips from my former job because that panel was relevant to this video, not as an endorsement of that publication, which is a fine publication, but I have my own disagreements with its editorial line. Okay, as always, thank you very much for watching. There's links in the description for ways to contribute to the channel. Social media, my Rumble. I'm setting up a Patreon where longer versions of videos will be available to subscribers. Thanks a lot, and until next time.